Blending is the most important part of your makeup, so I really hope you like this new mini series. I'm going to show you how to blend like a pro and share all of my top tips with you. Today's part 1 is all about achieving that perfectly flawless blended base. For foundation and concealer, I'm showing you 2 methods, one with a brush and one with a sponge. So with my brush method, I like to use a flat brush and really slowly layer up the foundation. I love flat brushes because they give a really flawless finish, although they can streak up a little bit, so you'll see I like to go over the top of this with a buffing brush. The one I like is from Real Techniques, and this just makes sure that any tiny little streaks left by the flat brush are perfectly blended in and everything looks really smooth. Also make sure you build in thin layers. That's what blending is about, in my opinion. It's so easy to build up and blend and blend and blend, and you'll get a much better finish than if you pack on loads of product at once. You'll also notice I use a really soft kind of stippling motion. So on the sponge side, I like to start with the flat brush again, but you'll notice I'm doing this a little bit messier. You don't have to be as precise with this because we're just using the flat brush to get that coverage, and then we're going to go in with a blending sponge. I love the beauty blender, but feel free to use whichever you like, and I'm bouncing this over the product and working it into the skin. I really love both techniques. I am really liking the beauty blender at the moment, but just try each one out and see which you prefer, although I would highly recommend the blending sponge if you have dry skin or foundation can tend to cling or look patchy on your skin, as the dampness of the sponge just really works that product right into your skin and gives a really smooth, natural finish. So you'll see both sides are pretty flawless coverage. I think the brush side has slightly more full coverage, but there's real negligible difference, and I just really like both. So just try out each and see which one works for you. So for concealer, I like to apply quite a lot of concealer, so blending is really important because concealer can crease or go cakey on me if I'm not careful. With a brush, I like to use the Real Techniques setting brush and really stipple that concealer in. With concealer, you never want to rub because concealer is pinpointing one area of the face where you want to cover, and you don't want to move that product around, you don't want to get rid of that coverage, you want to just blend it in that area so you get a really flawless finish. You'll also notice I go back over the area quite a lot, and this is just to really make sure it's set in and it's not going to crease. I also really like to go over the eyelid area too, just to get rid of any veins or redness. On the beauty blender side, I like to go straight in with the sponge and use the pointy end. You can pinch it to get it really nice and small so you can get right in the corner. And I will say that this side is a little bit quicker, but both sides really help give that smooth finish and prevent creasing and caking up, but the concealer will still set and cover throughout the day. Now I'm going to show you how I conceal blemishes. So I use the pinpoint concealer method. I learnt this from Lisa Eldridge's video. I will link it below. I highly recommend you watch it. If you like to use a lighter coverage foundation or a more medium coverage, and you don't want to look like you're wearing a thick, heavy mask of foundation, this is perfect for you because you can apply as little foundation as you want and then really pinpoint your concealer and that heavy coverage just where you need it on your face. So I've just pinpoint concealed all of my little blemishes I have, and then I like to tap with my ring finger. Your ring finger is the softest finger, and the warmth of your finger will just blend that in. So just tap, tap, tap just a few times so the product isn't sitting on the skin, and it will just work in really well without moving that product around. To set my face, I love pressing the powder into my skin. A lot of people buff it in, but I feel like that is what gives a cakey finish because you don't want the powder and liquid to mix. You want the product to just seal and lock your foundation in place. So pressing the product in really works, I think. And you'll notice I apply quite a lot of powder and I apply it all over. That is just because I have combination skin, and even if I set my whole face, I still have a dewy finish. So if you do have dry skin or you prefer a really dewy finish, then feel free to just use this technique down your T-zone and under your eyes. But I promise it really helps. It just really gives a smoother finish and prevents that cakey look that powder can give. So for bronzer, I like to use a larger, fluffier brush that has a lot of movement to it. That is because you want your bronzer to have a softer, diffused look. You don't want bronzer to sit in one area, as that just looks really false and obvious. So to get that kind of sun-kissed look, you just want to use a really light hand, so don't grip your brush too hard, and just use a really soft, quick kind of sweeping motion. Just use really thin layers and just build up. It's so easy to build and blend, and that gives a much better finish than if you apply too much and you look orange. You'll also notice with most products, apart from powder, I don't actually apply that much on the brush. I don't like loading up the brush with product. I much prefer really working the product into the skin and then looking back in the mirror and seeing what it looks like, and then if I want a little bit more, I will layer. So for contour, I like to blend right up on the high point of the hollow of the cheek. You don't want to blend too far down, as I feel like that gives too much sculpt. It gives almost like a sunken look. So you'll see I apply the product kind of from my eye, where my eye stops, upwards towards the hairline. And with contour, I tend to just go back and forth on that diagonal, and I really don't apply that much powder, because if you use the right colour, you really don't need to apply that much to get that sculpted effect. A great tip I always do is go back in with my powder brush. This just works any cheek colour into the skin and into the rest of the makeup. This is also perfect if you've gone a bit overboard or used a wrong colour and you just want to make sure you can kind of get away with it and blend it in. Just like you would blend your eyeshadow, I think it's really important to blend all of your cheek products in as well. Again, just like with bronzer, I like to use a really light hand and quite a little bit of product at first, and then layer and layer up. I do like to use a lot of blush, but I find layering really helps, because depending on what look you're going for, you might only need a tiny bit of blush. So don't dip back into the product too much, don't load up your brush, just really work in the product that you've got, and then you can always go back in for a little bit more. You'll also notice when I blend in blush, I'm always blending on that upward angle again. This is just because blending up the cheekbone really lifts the face and really helps your contour and your cheekbones stand out as well. And going back over with my powder brush again, not applying any more powder, just using the excess product that's on the brush to really work that product in. So this is similar to using a fluffy brush for your eyeshadow and just making sure you blend with each step. I do like a lot of highlight, but again, I just tend to go back and forth in that C-shape motion, just to make sure the product isn't sitting too much in any area and it's just really smooth looking. I always put a little bit on my cupid's bow and my brow bone as well. I just think that looks really pretty. And then one last time, I just like to go back over with my powder brush, and that is my base done. I really hope you picked up some good tips in this video. Practice makes perfect, so just don't be afraid to practice and just blend, build in thin layers, and you'll just get that flawless base. When your base looks flawless, the rest of your makeup looks 10 times better. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in part 2.